Good morning, everyone. Andariki namaskaram. So today we are with Mr. Kobad Ghandy, a resident of Mumbai, and has been working as a social activist, I think almost of his life, including his wife. She used to work as a social activist as well. And we are with him today and trying to understand how he came into this situation and how he has been attracted towards this socialist movement. And we will understand whatever the ups and downs he has seen so far. So, namaste, sir.
Namaste.
Sir,
yes.
I have a basic question for you. I mean, usually whomever I meet, I ask this question.
I see.
So, how did you got into this socialist activism? Like, what attracted you, you know, and what caused you, I would say, rather than attracted? Because something might have happened that might you have seen in your surroundings or in your own life or wherever it is, your environment, that might have caused this. So, what made you to come into this?
Well, that's correct. It was the racism in London. But actually, you see that we are Parsis. And Parsis lead completely isolated lives. We don't know anything about society. And I didn't. And I went to this elite school, Doon school. There also you didn't get that social knowledge at all. It was a good school, with a good education, good sports, all that stuff, but not social orientation. So I then did BSc Chemistry from Xavier's College in Bombay after schooling. There also it was in Xavier's College a sort of ordinary just sports and playing and passing time and all that, and studies. I was generally reasonably good at studies. Then my father sent me to London to do CA, Chartered Accountancy. He had got me audit in an audit company. He was working for Glaxo, so that company was doing the audit of Glaxo. So I went to UK, London in '68 after finishing my BSc Chemistry. Very few people have come from science to Chartered Accountancy.
Right.
Everyone would ask, why did you do science? I said, I never decided to do Chartered Accountancy. Right. My father decided and sent me, that's all. So when I went there, we were staying at the YMCA, Indian YMCA. You allowed new people who just come allowed 6 months there before they can find a place to settle down. So I was at the Indian YMCA, and then I used to go to work, auditing for audit work at the City of London. The company would send me for audits to other places, and in due course, just within I think 3-4 months, I started noticing. I personally didn't feel the overt forms of racism, but I noticed the others in the YMCA hostel would be facing it at this thing by talking and all that stuff. So this was an eye-opener. I mean, we led a very sheltered life, and we don't know anything about society. And I didn't know anything about racism or social activities or colonialism or anything. So I just knew my studies, that's all. I was not a great person who read literature also, books, generally. So after I began to think, what is this going on, why is racism? And at work also, I wouldn't face racism. I was generally very good at my work, so the bosses were very happy with me. But with colleagues and all, I'd feel subtle after noticing it. Earlier, I might not have realized they were condescending or something like that. But a little bit, but not really that much. I also experienced, but more what I saw from others, Indians. So I began to think. That's the first time I began to think. Now you remember this is '68, '69, where huge communist movements and left movements were sweeping the world, particularly the Vietnam War. London was a major center for this great charismatic leaders like Tariq Ali and all, who were 150,000 people, processions, according for the Americans to leave Vietnam. And so this was also going on, and then my thinking was going on this. Actually, beginning I wasn't Marxist or anything. I, in fact, bought out some stupid handbills, distributed it secretly amongst the Indians at the YMCA, saying that all Indians should leave this damn country and get back to India and build our own country. Yeah, why should we sit and be humiliated here? And that was naive, of course. People have come because they can't get jobs out there in India. So that I slowly then I started reading and about Indian history, about colonial history. There's a British Museum. We didn't have money. We get a very nominal stipend in CA, and my father was not that type of money that he could send money. Just sending me by flight itself was a expense.
Right.
And afterwards, of course, I took up a weekend job also at the Self-Religious, carrying. I had to fill the shelves from the godowns. That labor job, but you got good money in that, more than the stipend.
The stipend, okay.
Yeah, so that was sufficient for me. But so I would read about Indian history and all that, and I would also be noticing all these movements going on in London. Not that I initially attended them, but I was reading about them. So both these two things were going on. Then first I turned, because Gandhi had fought against apartheid in South Africa. So I was veering towards Gandhi a bit. But then I read a bit about him and this thing, and it didn't give me satisfactory answers. And then I went to study further these movements that are taking place, and then I was introduced to communism. Actually, what turned me finally to communism, I had read R.C. Dutt, the Adavai Nauroji, the rain theory, all that stuff of how India was looted by colonialism. And but the final thing, they were not communists. The Adavai Nauroji and all were basically just nationalists. And in fact, in that period, there was no communism. But finally, I read a book by R.P. Dutt. R.P. Dutt was the General Secretary of the CPGB at one time in the late 40s, I think. CPGB is Communist Party of Great Britain. He wrote an excellent book called India Today, which traced the freedom struggle and the movement and how India had looted, Britain had looted us and all that. That book actually converted me to communism, that book by him. Then I started reading, there's some bookstores called Banner Books and all that. Then I started reading a lot of Marx, Lenin, and particularly Mao. Then Mao was the rage in those days, 60s, 70s, the Cultural Revolution. And there's so many books by Western authors, Edgar Snow, William Hinton, all these. Edgar Snow on the Chinese Revolution, Edgar Snow on the Cultural Revolution, William Hinton on the Cultural Revolution, and many others, I forget the names now. Even the book on Norman Bethune, which had a big impact on me. The doctor that died in China while serving the revolutionaries in the medical sphere. And so all that then completely turned me towards communism. Then I would attend meetings and of these, basically the two trends in UK, communists, Trotskyites and the Maoists. CPGB was there, but no one considered these mainstream communist parties as whether CPI, CPM or this thing. And that time Naxalbari had also just taken place. And all this, though it was banned here, all the literature was available there in this Banner Books, this bookstore, pro-China bookstore. So I would be reading that also, and so slowly I got convinced that I found the roots of racism in from reading Marxism in the colonial project that had taken place in India, and also that the backwardness of India, even post-independence, the type of this thing, Naxalites had said Indian independence fake and all that stuff, and we saw that basically the same colonial laws continued the colonial structures continued, and we had superimposed the constitution, and the economy also was geared to not one paisa of the multinationals operating in the country were touched also. So the siphoning of the wealth, which the drain theory that led to the freedom movement, was continuing at a lesser degree. Earlier it was by British taxation of the rural population and all that was also taking it. But as the Industrial Revolution developed in Britain and it developed into imperialist structures, Britain and America now, the form of extraction changed from taxation and things like that to direct investments, multinational investments, the companies that came here. So also that we studied, and we found that this is very difficult. In fact, I wanted to calculate even today the loot taking place. But in those days also, we said that this is the same thing, the drain is continuing.
Right.
And how can the country develop really with the drain continuing? So that confirmed my Marxist orientation basically.
Okay. But by that time, I think if it's late 60s and early
Now
70s.
It was early 70s by
early
then.
70s.
I was arrested also then out there.
Okay.
While actually in the course of all this, during 71, we were having some street meeting in a working class area, and we were attacked by skinheads. Skinheads are those white racists. And physically attacked, and then the police were there as part of a planned thing, I don't know, but they arrested us, not them. And with me there were two whites others arrested, a lady and a gent, husband wife they were, and myself. Three of us. Even there I was segregated by the British police. They were even more racist than the whiteheads. They segregated me from the other two and thrashed me up in filthy abuse. Wow. Against Indians. So that was there also. By then I had anyway in my mind decided I said it can't go on, this corporate world and CA and corporate world and communist this thing. I had sort of half decided that I should give it up and go back to India and help the people of our country in developing on the basis of Marxist knowledge. Throughout all this period, I was corresponding with my father. Father was finance director of Glaxo, quite that elite thing, but he was very democratic. And through our debates through letters, he basically came around to my view, which is quite a exceptional thing.
Right.
And that's why I was been very lucky to get full support from family.
Right.
Till now, my sister is supporting. Otherwise, they would never had a house to live in. Right. So this went on, and then I told him after my arrest, a friend informed him, a friend who's doing CA. In fact, I met him only now a month back after nearly 55 years, and he informed me. I had forgotten it all what had happened. He said, "I informed your father," and surprisingly, he was not. He was very worried, of course. Naturally, being arrested and in jail is not a. We were sentenced to 3 months imprisonment finally. The case came up there. Cases come up after a year. By then I communicated with my father that I have decided to. You are arrested and released. There are no under trials there. The trial came up after a year. Okay. So by then I gave up my CA. I was working in Selfridges. That's enough to keep me surviving and waiting for the case to come up.
Okay.
But I didn't think to run away or something like that. I thought finish the case and come. So I told my father. He was quite supportive. He was horrified at the behavior of the police and all that. I said, yeah, you've done a good thing. You give up the CA and come back, which is quite credible because he spent a lot of hope on me. Right. None of my brothers or sisters were sent like this.
Right.
I was sent. Right. So then I continued my activities now much more. Now it's full time because no auditing and all that. So right. I given that up. Of course, my work was there to earn, and otherwise full time. So I was really just reading and studying and attending meetings and very intensive involvement in studying the freedom movement and the nature of the Indian economy, and also Marxism, all things. I went often to the British Museum because that was the source of a lot of books, particularly, not Marxist, but the other books.
Many books.
Yeah, many other Indian history, philosophy, all that stuff. And of course, Marxist books we were getting from there, and they were very cheap. They were published in China or Russia, which were very cheap. So that I got. So after that, the case came up after a year. At that time, I was very attracted to the Naxalites, basically, movement. Maoists actually were attracted more than all the others because of the Cultural Revolution, the attempts to try and change mankind into being humanistic and all that, that was there. Unheard of, that type of culture. So the youth were generally attracted towards the Cultural Revolution, and with the Cultural Revolution here in India, the Naxalbari. So one tended to adopt the same dogmatic, that time it was very dogmatic and very rigid, and this thing. I also became like that. And one thing they had all said, the boycott the bourgeois courts and all that type of stuff. So I was in a dilemma now, appearing before the court, what to do. So should I boycott or should I attend, or what should I do? Slouch slogans in the court or something like that. But I thought it's better to attend the case and make a political speech in the court when I'm asked to speak.
Right.
And I did that. I got up and said that, see, I'm not, what happened was actually like this, the skinheads attacked me, they were racist abused, then the police were even more racist than the skinhead, and they put cases on us, false cases on us, these are false cases. And the reason for this is the British ruling classes have robbed and destroyed our country, destroyed our people, destroyed everything. And now you continue, even though you have been kicked out, even now you are continuing with your old racist attitudes. We will no longer tolerate this. We are independent people now, and we will stand up on our own feet, and we will not tolerate this, and we will fight back. And I said that instead of putting me on trial, you should put the British, not the British people, I have nothing against the British people, but the British ruling classes who robbed and destroyed a country and who were responsible for spreading this racism, put them on trial. They should be here up in court for trial and sentenced for murder and destruction of an entire country. The judge was livid. By the time I finished, he was red and sweating and things like that. He said, lock this fellow up immediately, he's very dangerous, and I'll give the decision after 2-3 days, but meanwhile you lock him up. So I was sent off. What I thought was Brixton prison now, but actually this friend reminded me, you were not in Brixton, you were in Wandsworth prison.
Okay.
So now I have to change my book also.
Okay.
My memory is very bad. And so I was let off to prison. Then 3-month sentence he passed.
Okay.
You served 2 months, 2/3 of that. It was okay in prison. I mean, hard labor. Hard labor means carrying potato sacks to the kitchen every day, that's all. And once I was released, I came back to India to look for revolutionaries.
So I have one question, sir.
Yeah.
I mean, you said that you read about Gandhi, and then, so many questions were unanswered, and that it was not satisfying. So what was that was not satisfying? And what made you think that, okay, Gandhi, I mean, maybe he's not up to your expectations or whatever it was, but I can't say it, but in your own words, what was that?
Actually, basically, Gandhi, which I read about, firstly, his role in South Africa was wishy-washy. He only supported the Indians, not the blacks. That role was there. And he asked for favors, basically, for the equal status of Indians with whites, not of the blacks that were there. That was a bit of a dampener. Second point is that Gandhi never... See, Marxism gave us a scientific understanding of the whole system of colonialism, which resulted in racism. Gandhi had nothing of that. It was just his writing. He hadn't also written There were his writings by then were all available, but there was none of that. It was the freedom struggle, non-violence, all those type of things that was there. And Marxism has showed that, and history has proved also, that no radical change has taken place without violence. From the Paris Commune, and the violence is more from the point of view of the ruling classes, starting with the Paris Commune. Very democratically, they elected a new government, a socialist government. That was the first sort of communist revolution. And they set up a power in Paris. And after 2 months, the old rulers butchered them most thoroughly, just butchered the entire lot. After that, Marx changed his view on a change and brought in the question of the necessity for violence and things like that. So, and we've seen this again and again repeated in Chile, in Indonesia, in the Middle East, where the communists have even butchered, forget Hitler and all those who have butchered communists in Germany, besides the Jews. But everywhere the violence is more on the part of the ruling classes. So, that did not then appeal. Now after my present analysis in my present book, Fractured Freedom, I've said, revolution need not be just violent, because actually the successful revolutions only take place during the world wars. That's a reality. The First World War resulted in the Russian Revolution, Second World War, Chinese Revolution. Where the other armed revolution? Even Paris Commune, even while researching now, I found even the Paris Commune arose at the time of the Franco-German War. That also. So, one has to rethink all those things. Socialism has to be brought. The capitalism has no answers. And Gandhi didn't have any of these type of answers. Though he had many positive aspects of simplicity, of even his economic policies, I think, were much more valid, developed from the villages, and then rather from Nehru's policy from the top. But it was not, Marxism is a brilliant science. And even the dialectical and historical material is that the philosophy, forget the actual aspect of understanding India, racism and colonialism, even the philosophy to look at the world, dialectical and historical, is a brilliant piece of analysis. And he hardly, when he was alive, hardly had capitalism come into existence from the feudal past in the 19th century. And it had just grown. I mean, the Industrial Revolution had just taken place in Britain and all that stuff. So, yet he was so perceptive of the nature of capitalism, his Das Kapital he was able to write. At that stage, it's absolutely a brilliance. I mean, all that people, even during the Lehman Brothers crisis, I read in and after, we're talking about we have to reread Marx to understand why we've gone into a great recession now. So his writings were really very, given the knowledge that are available. Now I am trying to develop based on further knowledge of psychology, Freud, because he was pre-Freud also. Psychology was not there. When he said social being determines consciousness, the question of the subconscious and knowledge of the subconscious was not there also. That came with Freud and later of psychologists, Eric Jong and other people. So we have to develop, we have to go with times. It's a science, any science develops. And it's a social science. And I think the seeds to this day are absolutely brilliant. But we should not be dogmatic and take word to word today, 150 years later. We should understand it as a science and develop it. And apply it according to our local conditions. Indian communists have never done that. Either Chinese model or Russian model, that's all. That's all.
That's the biggest challenge we have.
Yeah, that's the biggest.
So when you say that, when we talk about Marx, it's more about communism than socialism, right? So there is a difference as well. So why communism against socialism?
See, I don't know the word, we should look it up in the dictionary, what is the difference, but the economy is socialist, I do believe, the philosophy is communist, but socialists are various categories. You get the social democrats also, you get the Labour Party, you get all these, but most of these other socialists which are not linked to communist philosophy, the socialist economy which is not linked to communists, are basically Keynesian capitalists, where the social democrats of the West or here or everywhere, their economy is basically talking about state intervention and state this thing, but maintaining the capitalist system. That is what these socialists say. That is really Keynesianism. It's not Keynesian capitalism. Capitalism has two forms so far, Keynesian and the neoliberal. So Keynesian was peaked after World War II, Keynesian economy, worldwide, for whatever reason. It started coming into crisis in the 70s. And so they shifted to neoliberal in the 80s and 90s.
So that's the challenge, right? See, whatever it is, if you take an extreme, any extreme, whatever it is. I mean, we have in in India we have a proverb called "Ati Sarvatra Varjayet." Ati Sarvatra Varjayet. It's a Sanskrit proverb. That means anything that goes to any extreme, for sure it's going to fail. Any extreme. So because things can go to an extreme only for a certain period or for a very, very limited period. It can be any extreme, right? So that way it has taken its peak and it cannot stay there. And when it comes to communism, and if you take in Russia, it collapsed, right? China, they talk communism, but they are really not communists, right? So today, if you see, I mean, whether it is today or 20 years ago, real communism was not there. Even during its peak stage, it has taken up because people were whoever taking the rights of it immediately, they were okay with it. But after some time, when they have to lose something from their pocket, they don't like it. So it's common psychology, for any human being. So that's why. In an ideal situation, I don't think any ideal situation can exist for communists as they are, or communist philosophy. Rather, socialist, probably yes, maybe to some extent, but again, as you said, there is no real socialism as well, right? So, but if we can,
it's Keynesianism. What they call mainstream calls socialism is basically Keynesian capitalism.
That's right. That's right. So that's why as I said, there is no real socialism as well. But if we can work towards real socialism, for sure, because you should get what you are working for. You should get. I mean, you should not be underpaid or overpaid. In both the cases, I would say. And at the same time, yes, the government should take care of people who are maybe BPL or whatever we call today, right? Or poor people. Right, to bring them up to above the. So that doesn't mean that take the line down. They really should come up in socio-economical ways, both ways. It's not just in either economic or social ways. So, but in communists, I did not see that. So, how did you think that? Okay, at that time, because I cannot. I was not even born. So, how did you think that? Okay, communists. Or communism is the best answer that we have for the.
Actually, at that time there was a wave of communism throughout the world that really impacted everyone, all the youth. Soviet Union was communist. China had become communist. Communist movements were raging in Middle East, even Eastern Asia, Thailand, Vietnam, Cambodia. Of course, the wars were there later.
But what was the reason for that?
And Indonesia. No, because of the discontent of the people. Capitalism had really proved to be and even Latin America, even Middle East.
Do we see it as a hatred towards somebody who is prospering?
No, it's not a hatred, this thing. It was a understanding that capitalism cannot give basic necessities of life to the people. It was that understanding, basically. Not the Keynesian type of socialism, but the communist. And actually, if you see, even today, first they experimented with the world, post-World War II, experimented with Keynesian economism. From 45 to 75, it was quite successful. Then the crash came in 73, first crash came. And then 82, a huge crash came. And then they could not recover from them. So they discarded the Keynesian economy economics and went to the Chicago School of Thoughts, which is the neoliberal, Milton Friedman's economy. And what was the essence of that? Just basically exploit labor to the maximum and globalize the economy by sending to cheap labor areas the products.
China,
Yeah, so things they relocated. And in India, if you see, we have worked in Bombay amongst the working class. Take, for example, the textile workers. That's just one example of how the economy changed with neoliberalism. Bombay was known as a working class city till the 80s. The whole central Bombay had about 40-50 huge textile mills, and 2.5-3 lakh workers were there. And this was the heart of what was Bombay. Of course, the CPI unions were there, the Gidni Kamgar union and all that. That was vibrant. It was really a working class city. Then with the neoliberal economy, starting from the 80s and then more particularly when Manmohan Singh became finance minister in the 91, the start was from the 80s itself. What they did was, they probably instigated that huge strike, that the Saman strike, and sacked the entire 2.5 lakh workers. Sacked, so they got no compensation because it was a strike. Right. So that was very convenient. So all the mill owners were united. They were said to have brought in the Shiv Sena to Bombay, the mill owners themselves. And in fact, the first action of the was to kill one Maratha, not any South Indian or Muslim or anything, which they now have that impression. They killed Krishna Desai. Who was Krishna Desai? He was the communist leader of the textile unions. Okay. That was their first action of the Shiv Sena. So you see and that was all obviously at the behest of the mill owners. And what happened then? Mills closed, huge real estate value, because it's in the heart of Bombay, Parel, Lower Parel. All the production of cloth was now sent to Bhiwandi, Surat, the power looms, small power looms. We had unions there also, in the power looms in Bhiwandi. They were all Telugu workers mostly. Okay. So more that connection. And one of the leading persons in our group was a person from here only, Srikakulam. Okay. So he worked amongst the Telugu workers there. They worked 12 hours. You know how they lived? It's so horrible. It's so filthy also, the conditions. I used to go there also. A small room like that, 12 people would live in. Wow. And they would work 12-hour shifts. 6 people, there was enough place for 6 people to sleep. So in the first shift, 6 people would sleep. In the second shift, 6 people would sleep. Okay. They would hardly get paid anything, 8 to 10,000. And they were producing more cotton than the big mills, who had good permanent jobs, 30,000 salary in those days, you can imagine, right, with all the benefits. So this is what neoliberalism led to. And this is an example, and we've seen it with our own eyes. Why we had unions in Hindustan Lever also, a multinational, Siemens also. Hindustan Lever, you take the same thing happened. We only led a huge strike in Hindustan Lever. It lasted for 7 months. They declared a lockout, closed down, and now it's through contract labor. They've contracted all their production all over the country, Hindustan Lever. So you see that this is the change. These strikes, we didn't realize it then, were actually used by or provoked by the managements to get rid of the workers at least cost. Right. So what happened was, so this neoliberal economy came in, GDP rates grew, but that doesn't mean people's conditions improved. In fact, it worsened. Right. The whole essence of the neoliberal policy of Milton Friedman and all was to actually extract more from labor to get over their crisis. If you take the Marxist economy, it is the depreciation of capital plus as capital expenditure, which yearly it's a depreciation figure, plus the cost of labor, which is the value of the product, and they sell beyond that is the surplus value, which is profit. Right. So you decrease the surplus value, you can't decrease machinery and all that. The only decreasing factor is the value of labor. You decrease that and the profit will increase. So they were able to revive the falling profits of the Keynesian period through the neoliberal by attacking the working class worldwide. It started with Chile in 1971, where Milton Friedman personally intervened in Chile to initiate that coup d'etat, killing Allende and killing thousands of leftists, that was not even communists, and installing Pinochet. Pinochet was the first experiment with the neoliberal economy in 1971, with the decimation of the left, murders, and that this rascal, that Chicago School of Thought economist, was personally involved out there. You can Google it and see. And after Chile, they went to other countries and a few other countries in Latin America, and finally it was mainstream through Reagan and Thatcher in America and Britain, the neoliberal, and then the worldwide. So this neoliberal policy was nothing but crushing labor union, extracting more from labor. As the first part, later, with globalization and financialization of the economies, it was shifting industries to the poor countries, India and then China, in a big way. China capitalized on it afterwards, that we'll see afterwards. But the thing is that the surplus value extracted from India and then siphoned abroad was huge compared to what they pay their labor. You just compare labor costs. And here in India, it was, same thing happened at a different level. Big industry was shut and it was contracted out. Today you take any strip of medicine and you will see that it is manufactured by some small manufacturers and branded by them.
Right.
So it's everywhere now. Right. When I was in Jharkhand jail, I saw it very crudely, how these contractors in railways, in education, in coal mining, in the 70s and 80s we had coal unions in Western Coalfield in Chandrapur, in that area, huge mining area. They had the labor and they had quarters and they had good payment. Everything is shut, all contractualized today. So GDP grows, but condition of people have gone down. So you get a new type of economy which is geared to the affluent. So GDP, the growth of the GDP, I've written an article from jail also, opposing GDP fundamentalism. Growth fundamentalism, I called it, or something like that. Okay. Because it doesn't really picture what the condition of the people are. And what happens is that you take in Jharkhand, for example, Coal India Limited. If it extracted the coal itself, it will have managerial and labor. Labor, say, gets good payments, 30,000-40,000 a month. Managerial will get their lakhs or whatever it is. Now what is it? What is the structure? Coal India Limited will contract it to some subcontractor. That contractor will subcontract each activity to hundreds of subcontractors, which will employ contract labor. Right. So labor is finally getting, instead of earlier they were getting 40,000, they will be getting a measly 8 to 10,000. Right. The subcontractors will get some, the contractor will get some. So where the pie is the same, but the way it's divided is changed. Right. So what happens is that even as far as market goes, upmarket expenditure will increase, basic necessities will stagnate. Right. Because people don't have the purchasing power there. Right. So that's how the economy has been molded in the neoliberal period. And that's not sustainable. And with a black market, there the contract labor, this contracting system is also accompanied by a huge black marketing of coal. Some MLA in Tenuga jail told me, he was an MLA's brother, he himself said that something like 40% of all production goes into the black market. And this black market feeds the police, the politicians, the panchayats, the Naxalites, the ministers, everyone. So this is how the economy functions, and this is huge money. So this money, black market money, will go to be spent in 5-star hotels and purchasing upmarket cars and all that. But the basic masses will be pushed down further, and their market will decrease. So overall the market increases, but by GDP, but actually the conditions of it's not sustainable also.
Right.
So the crisis came now, and that's another matter, how the lockdown came and everything.
Right, of course, we have to discuss that as well.
I have written an article, Corona Capitalism.
Oh, okay.
Published,
we'll go into that as well.
It's published as in mainstream.
Okay. So, I mean, but I think my question still stands, sir, because see, the thing is, if today, even today, as you said, the differences are there, but not many people are inclined towards this kind of revolution or any fight back. Right, today, if you look at the prices, right, the petroleum products.
Yeah, I know. Skyrocketing.
Too high. Does that mean the people who are at the below poverty line, or even middle class or lower middle class people, can they really buy this? No. But the thing is, they are not coming up and they are not coming forward to fight against this, right? So it's not just petroleum products. A lot of other
even
basic necessities.
basic food
Exactly.
Foods.
Right.
Yeah.
So the price hiked up like anything. Never before. We have never seen this kind of price hiking.
True.
Right. But people are really not coming forward for that. Why? Because, I mean, in my point of view, they have some comfort zone. They don't want to miss that comfort zone and come forward and get into any revolutionary activity. Unless you're really what do you call, missing your basic needs, or you're not able, you can't live, or it's maybe a threat to your daily life. Probably that's the time people might come for any kind of revolt or revolution. So it need not be any violent one, right? Even if it's not a violent one, right? Non-violence also, but they don't come forward.
What about the Kisan movement, which is going on for 1 year?
Yes, that is, yes, that's where, right? Because even if you look at that one, right, it is happening primarily in the northern part of the India only, that too in a couple of states. If you see it here, people are not even bothered about it. They don't even have any knowledge about it, to be frank. So I come from a village, and they don't even know about this. Yeah, they do look at the news, and mainstream media doesn't cover it because of whatever the political influence, or they don't get any TRP probably, right? So they don't cover it. So people don't even know the more details about it. And I think Haryana and Punjab, I think, primarily are involving in this.
Western UP, Rajasthan.
Western UP as well, okay. So I'm not aware of that, see. So the thing is, so only those areas people, it's not that cultivation is the main thing only over there. Even in Andhra Pradesh, primarily if you look at Godavari and the Krishna basin, you have people, a lot of people live on cultivation. If you look at Tamil Nadu as well, Kaveri basin.
Yeah.
But of course, real estate is booming, and people are not bothered about cultivation or agriculture anymore, which is another aspect that we may have to talk about. But so, because they are comfortable enough, maybe there are here and there are challenges, but okay, fine, I'm fine, it's okay. Or let somebody take the gun, let somebody shoot it, not me, right? So that kind of psychology, I think I would say, because that's the present thought process of many people. Heroes should born, but not in our home. It should be, maybe right next to me, or maybe a little far from me, so that, because if something happens to me, it should not impact us.
Yes.
Right. So that kind of things are growing up really more and more in these days. So with this situation, how do you think this ideological thought process will win?
You see, actually, yes, we have 2 days discussion out here. A lot of it went on this topic. Okay. Why are the youth not coming to the movement and things like that? But first, coming to the first point is that, see, the capitalism, if you see the present situation, this article also I've written, because basically I'm an economist. I've been writing mostly on economics. Now I'm going to philosophy and psychology and all to deal with these problems. But the economy of the world was in severe crisis before the lockdown. Unheard of. In the first quarter of 2020, US, Europe and Japan contracted by 6 to 8%. Unheard of. If it even grows by about 1%, it is treated as a depression. Contraction of 6 to 8% was never there, even in the Great Recession of 2008. It was only there in the period of the Great Depression of 1930. It was such a severe crisis. And then that was, the media did not cover that hardly, because I am perceptive. I read economics and I make notes and all. I saw that. The left also ignored that factor. Most of the left economists have ignored that. And then the lockdown came. And the contraction was 20%, 30%, 40%, in fact, unheard of. Everyone blamed the lockdown.
Exactly.
Yeah, they didn't see the roots of it out there.
Right.
So the thing is that their economy is severe. And even if you see, we can go into that. I have done a detailed analysis in this Corona Capitalism article. But even before that, if you see the nature of neoliberal, it has destroyed people's lives. As I gave you an example of the textile workers and the present power loom workers, the contrast. So it is in every sector of the economy. It has not only destroyed people's lives, it has destroyed the environment, it has destroyed the river sources, it has destroyed water bodies, it has destroyed everything. And to rejuvenate is going to be a huge, impossible task. That's why I was saying yesterday that capitalism actually, in fact, I've outlined this briefly in my book also, that even 10 years back, some 350 billionaires had same wealth as half the population of the world. And slowly it's reduced, and now it's about 5 billionaires that have that population, the same wealth. Probably after lockdown it will be 2. But so this is pre-lockdown figures.
Right.
And so it's destroying the lives of poor. In fact, in lockdown, even in India, some data has shown that out of the 90 million middle class, 30 million have been pushed into poverty.
Right.
So this lockdown and the future is going to destroy not only the poor, but it's also going to destroy the middle classes.
Correct.
Worldwide. And India, it is very clear also how it's happening. The policy is being pushed through parliament and things like that. And so we see that they have destroyed every aspect, not only of human life, except for the billionaire club and their hangers-on. They have also destroyed environment, water, land, forests, every damn thing that society is good in the world, they have destroyed. So, in fact, to now rejuvenate the world, as we were discussing yesterday, there has to be a strong eco-policy, because you cannot, it will take years to rejuvenate the world. And the way they are going at it, even after this destruction, there's a Glasgow World Climate Conference, they talk about all that, but they continue the destruction of the Amazon forest, the Indian forest. Adani has been given a huge coal project in Chhattisgarh, destroying lakhs of forest land. So also in Madhya Pradesh, some Birla, I think, has been given this thing for gold and diamond mining. Again, lakhs of acres of forest land. So it's just going on for the mining mafia, the real estate mafia. You see all what happened in Uttarakhand just now. They're practically devastated with the rain. And this is not the first time, it's the second time that it's happened. A few years earlier it happened. But they have gone ahead with the hydroelectric projects, the building of roads to Kedarnath, Badrinath, all that type, to push pilgrimage tourism, or whatever it is called, religious tourism or something like that. That's again money making. So the tourist lobby, the mining lobby, the real estate lobby, all in league with the politicians and of foreign interests who want to extract the last drop of blood from the people. That's going on at a huge pace, and India is particularly bad. So people's conditions are getting worse. Now coming to the point that you raise, and they have no answer. In fact, this Corona Capitalism article I've written in Mainstream is an answer. It's a reply to what they are predicting in the future. Klaus Schwab, the head of the World Economic Forum, has written a number of books, the latest being COVID-19, The Great Reset. The Great Reset is the word being used everywhere now.
Right.
And the Great Reset is even more horrific than the Brave New World, which is a kalpanic thing of Aldous Huxley, or the 1984 of George Orwell. It's a horrifying future and a reality. He's portraying it as a necessary reality, and of course saying it's going to be a paradise, but it's going to be a horror. You can read between the lines and see that book. It's a reply to him, basically, my article.
Okay.
Saying Corona Capitalism, reverse the reset. So, this is what's in stake for the world peoples, not the billionaire club. I've also gone on to analyze how this billionaire club is organized and how they have penetrated every aspect of the third world countries, including India, through various forums, and how all these people are converted into merely puppets acting at the behest of Bill Gates and Fauci's and all these people, who are themselves frontmen for the main financiers, Rothschild and Rockefeller and the digital moguls and such people. So I try to analyze the whole picture and what is going to bring in the future, and unless we are alert to it, we're entering a situation worse than the Great Depression. So, but why are people not responding? That is the point. Actually, yesterday we were discussing, and my book also tries to deal with that. The communists are to blame. Communists have been so rigid, so petty, so this thing. They've not it's not, no, firstly, when I came to communism, it was raging worldwide. So there was a euphoria, and great cultural revolution was there in China, which really attracted a lot of the youth. And all over the world there was this movement. And the youth particularly were coming forward in a big way. It's not that the youth in India it's particularly bad because of various factors of the social content, caste and religion, caste, particularly casteism in India. And caste sort of entraps a person into his own small group. And with this Hindutva ideology, all these things are enhanced in the consciousness of people. It's already latent there. It's only brought out in a more crude way. So what happens is that people are only thinking in their limited spheres of their caste now, and it's also oppressive and divisive, both. So that's ideal for any ruling classes to rule a country. It's ready-made for even foreign aggressors.
Right.
No, they won't unite because they're looked down upon. Every caste looks down upon a lower caste. Right. Even the Dalits will look down upon the lower Dalits. Like in Telugu, in Andhra, you have the Malas, which is higher up, and the Marigas who are lower up. So you will have that, it's horrible, it's pernicious, and it's growing in a very big way. That is one factor. The second factor is the weakness of the communists. I was just talking just now this morning to this comrade from Angol, and he was saying that communists are there are about 5 or 6 ML groups. Each person has 10 or 12 people, and they're all fighting amongst themselves, all ego problems, all this. Who's going to get attracted to this type of thing? There's no new value system. There's in fact, worst type of pettiness amongst the communists, including the ML, which I was always a part of. And this, I have seen it also, 50 years of my life I have seen all this. So I've tried to reflect it in my book in the 3rd section, this point, that communism has to be or communism, why human beings have to be first programmed. And and in that way, organizations, particularly organizations working for social change, and particularly the leaders of these organizations, should have 3 aspects in them: the values of a change of values. I've called it the Anuradha, who was my late wife, model, because she was really a picture, an ideal sort of person, I thought, with all the values of modesty, simplicity, straightforwardness, honesty. Basically a childlike person she was, but not a naive. She's a great intellectual. I mean, her works on caste and feminism are now legendary, read in the West also, translated into Spanish into this thing. So she was not naive, but she was always childlike, simple, straightforward, even though she was a big leader. So I portrayed her as a sort of model person for the future, and with those values should be encompassed with the aspect of freedom. Freedom, not government, should, the country and all that. Starting with freedom for oneself. We ourselves are entrapped in a lot of alienation, in complexes, in this thing. We ourselves are not free. How we can make other people free? So we have to free ourselves first through various, that's the role where psychology will have to come in. And what should be the goal? I say the goal should not be equality, which has been normally put on the communist agenda. The goal should be happiness.
Exactly.
Now, I put that in my book is there, and I have said that. And the happiness, I said, then people are saying, many people have criticized from the left this book, saying it's a Buddhist approach and things like that, or whatever.
Yeah, they just name it.
Yeah, you name it, you can brand it. That's a
Right.
common thing in the left, to brand
Right.
anything that is not mainstream. I mean,
Right.
their mainstream
Right.
is branded. But I replied to all of them, and they've all been quiet. They've not been able to counter my reply. Because what I've said is happiness does not negate the question of equality. Forget equality. There may be inequality also in the first phases and all that, but basic necessities of living. Now, if you don't have the basic necessities of living, you can't be happy. So naturally, the first task is that, but that cannot be the goal of communism. It should be happiness. Basic necessities for what? Basic necessities as a path towards happiness.
Right.
And once you get the basic necessity, it doesn't mean you will be happy. There's so much intrigue in families, this thing and splits and this and that and stuff. They're not happy also. So we have to change our values, build an atmosphere of freedom, and inculcate the question of new value system.
Right.
And inculcate and keeping the goal of happiness always there. So if we keep the goal of happiness there, then I am a leader in a group. I will not behave in a dictatorial and a dominating way which will make the other cadre unhappy. If I do behave, the others should be conscious enough, see, you are not acting correctly, because these are our qualities that we desire in our organization. So that has to be inculcated. People are saying how and all that I said we have to see.
Yeah, but that's too constructive, right? People are not that constructive.
Yeah.
People are, attracted more towards hatredness nowadays.
Oh?
Hatredness.
Yeah.
And, let's say, if I'm criticizing you in what do you say, in a vulgar language, yeah, people are more attracted to it, and, more people will watch it.
Yeah.
Rather than, doing a constructive discussion.
Yeah.
And it attracts no one, to be frank.
but
there will be a few people, but so what I mean to say is, yes, as you said, happiness should be the goal, for sure.
Yeah.
And coming to this equality thing, see, everything is relative, right?
Yeah.
In a relative world, how you can define equality?
Yes, so I don't think equality should be the term used.
Exactly.
It should be basic necessity of life everyone should get.
So yes, you should be treated equally when it comes to justice, when it comes to few things, right?
Yeah, that's a different level.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But equality, no, it can never happen.
Yeah.
It's we will just fight for it forever, and it will never happen.
Yeah.
Right. Yes, as you said, happiness, that should be the goal. And the government and the social activists at the same time, even the people should look forward for that. Instead of,
Correct.
Yeah, fine, he got this, he got a
But
pen.
you're saying it's true that people want to see violence and see this and see that on the TV and all that type of stuff, and hatred and all that. But that's what's inculcated by the media also.
Right.
But also I saw, I was really astonished at the response I got for my book, which deals with love and which deals with the opposite concepts. I was surprised at the number of people, how it was flying off the shelf. This thing, and now it's being translated into 8 languages, Indian languages.
Wow.
And because the response
in Telugu as well?
In Telugu as well.
Wow.
Yeah. So they only publishing it.
Oh, really?
Vishal Andhra.
Okay.
So as being translated, he said only 1 chapter is left. A Hyderabad person, I'm going there, I'll meet him. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So the people obviously are searching, and in the West, India, I tell you, is particularly pernicious because of the caste system. Unless that is fought against, we can get no progress in this country.
And no political party is going to.
And no politics, because they're all vote bank politics.
Exactly.
So we have to. It's a long struggle.
Right.
But in the West, you just see in the West, America, for example, Bernie Sanders was more popular amongst the youth than any of the top leaders.
Right.
So he is a socialist, whatever social democrat, but he is a socialist. I mean, the youth were attracted to him, not to Clinton or Trump or when he was around. But they pushed him out. The Democrats pushed him out. They didn't allow him to stand twice, not once. No, even in Britain, Jeremy Corbyn.
Yeah, but he could not win within the party itself, right?
Yeah, because they all established, the whole structure of the parties is so geared that the big corporates will decide who is going to do this thing. So he was ousted. Though even the media had said that if Bernie Sanders was standing against Trump, Bernie Sanders would have won.
Right.
It was Clinton who stood against Trump, she lost. The media is saying that. So, I mean, the level of his power, but of course, the deep state, as they say, will not allow like a Bernie Sanders type of person, unless they're desperate.
See, the thing is, the media is controlled or managed or whatever we see, or they have their own agenda, right? See, everybody today is looking towards their own profitability, their own benefits. So obviously, it has to work, in an independent way with, idealistic thought process, but that's not the way it is happening. So with considering all these constraints today, whatever they are present as they are, because that is the reality. Right?
Yeah, correct.
How we are going to see, the thing is, people, yes, they watch a movie that is really pleasant with family and everything, with everyone, friends, family, everyone. But if they do watch a mass movie that has a lot of violence or whatever that attracts them more, which they cannot do in reality,
Yeah.
So such movies are much bigger hits than these classical movies. Yes, they do watch these movies as well when it comes to the movies. The same thing applies in books and even in the media and the stories that you come up with or features, whatever you call, right? So if, for example, today's our discussion, for sure I can say that this is going to be useful for the youth and also the society, but you may get maybe 100 or at the maximum you get 500 views, that's it. Of course, if I'm a mainstream media, maybe it may go up to 100,000 or 200,000. But when it comes to something like a rape news or some other news, millions of views will be there. Millions. Even if I'm posting it, for sure I will have at least 100,000 views. So even the people who are running these shows, they will have no other option unless their pockets are deep enough, because nobody is going to promote them, nobody is going to support them, right? So that's how the society is today. So with this reality, considering this reality, how we can go towards this idealistic world of happiness?
I think it's drops that fill in ocean. First you have to, a section of the people can be attracted if they are organized and if they are brought onto some platform, then they will impact the others. Because I'm finding when I came out of jail, and I was really astounded that the type of people who just wanted to meet me and see me, from our Parsi community, all elitist, forget about the rest of society. And I went to Pune with a friend. She's a horse lover. So we went to the race course. She wanted to meet the horse. The horse trainer said, "Oh, you are this person, I've read your book," and all that. I mean, I was so astounded the type of people who are reading the book. So there's an element in them, in people, these are totally apolitical. I mean, a horse trainer living only amongst the top elite. Who owns the race horses? The Poonawalas and there's real rascals who own the race horses. And he's a trainer for them, paid by them. But he responded like that. I've seen so many such responses. Unknown people who have read the book and been buying more copies to give to friends and things like that. Somehow it's touched a chord within, I think, within the ordinary liberal sort of, who want to see a better world, basically. And I think that this is, it's a drops that fill. If you go to the more backward sections, you see all this violence and rape and all that type of stuff. Yes, that's this thing. And what happens in India, regarding rape or sex and this type of violence and all, it's very hypocritical society. The media propagates all the values of the Western world, but people in their social life cannot experience it because of the restraints of, say, feudal culture or whatever, the caste culture and these type of things. So there's a huge contradiction in their lives, which is reflected in, that's why I call alienation. It's this form of alienation, what not Marx talked about, but it's this form of alienation. In India, it manifests, alienation manifests basically in with programming done by the world outside, the media particularly, and the social media and all that type of stuff, and our own existence and our own values and our own environment. This contradiction is resulting in this then wanting to see it on screen or wanting to see, you can't reflect it in your own life. In the West, it's not like that. In the West, I'm sure if Bernie Sanders can get so much popularity, films that portray that will also be very popular. Apparently, this Naomi Klein book, 2007, written The Great Disaster, Shock Doctrine. The Shock Doctrine was a hit amongst this new, there was a movement, no? 1% against the 99%. It was the main book that, I've used that book for this, my writing also. Now, I didn't even know about this book. Disaster Capitalism, what's it called? Shock Doctrine, something of Disaster Capitalism.
Okay.
It's a brilliant forcing of what's exactly happening in India today. The shock doctrine was COVID, and disaster capitalism was all the policies passed in the latest session of Parliament. I mean, you just see word to word of what is said. So it's drops that fill the ocean. First, we can't go to the backward sections that thrive on all this for reasons that are genuine also. It's the cultural clash, basically, I feel, what is portrayed on media and all this ads and all these type of things, and what they experience in their own lives and relations amongst themselves. So they can't fulfill all those things that they see there. They see it on movies, and that's all. In their lives, they can't this thing. So it's that clash of this thing. So India is a particularly pernicious case, and definitely going to be even a more difficult problem to bring about change.
Right.
But West already has that, and I'm sure many other countries has that. Third world, no country has a caste system, firstly. No country, and that is the major stumbling block for any real progressive change. It just makes you claustrophobic, it makes you oppressive, it makes you hypocritical, it makes you, there's all this honor killing and this and that. I mean, you can't love, you can't eat, you can't do anything what you want. It's absolutely just ridiculous the way it's gone, and it's getting worse by the present dispensation, whatever it is. But it's latent in the people. Yesterday someone said, I didn't answer it, why does RSS get so much popularity and all that? It's really because these things are latent in people. What we are saying is not latent in people. It's something new that is latent in their consciousness. So
that's exactly my question.
They bring that out.
Yes.
They are able to bring that out easily. And in the West, it is more the diversion through other types of violence and vulgarity and things like that.
Well, I mean, if you look at US as well, right? During this Trump period, see why people voted to Trump, not just because he was more popular than Clinton, Mrs. Clinton, right? Because he was able to bring out that nationalism or localism, whatever we call America for Americans.
Yeah,
it has come up a lot in US. I was there at that time, so.
Achha.
So.
But the youth went.
Everyone, So it's there across the globe, I would say, because I mean I've seen in very few countries though, but it is there. So at least I've seen that during that particular period. So they hated primarily the Indians because we were the people who were looting their or robbing their
jobs,
white collar jobs.
Yeah,
so primarily, see, hard jobs
IT,
and all.
yeah.
Yes, IT side, right? So that was there. A lot of even many people died.
Killed. Yeah, I know.
Here and there,
yeah, we
right?
read about it. Yeah.
Right. So and it happened simply because of this hatred only. So So that's what I'm trying to say. See, the thing is, when you read an ideological book or some good theory, yes, people do and think that, oh yeah, this is really good thing, if it happens, wow. How many people are really there to follow it or ready to go for anything, take an extra step at least, if not everything? No, they're not ready. I mean, you asked me a question, right? So when did you start this and why did you come back and why media and all?
Yeah.
So I was there. I was in India. I've been in India for 2 years, and I was trying to do something. So in different ways.
Yeah.
Yes, when you talk about it, people say, wow, that's great. But how many people do really come with you? I would say simply none. So it takes a lot of time, pain, and a lot of sacrifice from our end, or whoever it is, to convince them, first of all, to come with you. Because as an individual, there is nothing that much that we can do.
Actually, that's why we were discussing yesterday, it requires an organization. Without that, without people organized, you cannot bring about even the small change. A small organization with a new culture, we were talking about a broad front of left and democratic people to try and form in the country. And with an agenda, with a clear agenda, with these value systems also and everything as goals, we try to build up something new. I mean, how did the RSS work? You see, the RSS work quietly, though they are a part of the existing culture, so it's easier for them. But they work only from 1925, they worked and only came to power now, after 70 years. We have to have that type of patience. We have to have that patience. We have to maybe work like the RSS also, in that way, with cadre force and with commitment for something positive, not hatred, not based on hatred, but based on love.
Today it is, I would call it is extreme Hinduism or extreme Hindutva.
Yeah.
I think that's a better word. Because, see, the thing is, what Hindutva was meant, or Hindutva itself was not our own word, but anyway, we own it now. So, what it was meant for. And if we are questioning it also, we are questioning is based on what is happening today and considering what they are doing today. So that should not be the way it has to be. Yes, we lived with that particular culture for thousands of years, and we lived in harmony as well. I'm not that great at history, but I did it in schooling and all. That's it. So. I've never heard of any historical event that was caste based long ago. I'm not talking about in the what do you call neo history, or I'm not sure what it is called though, but from modern history, I would say. If you look at prior to medieval, ancient history or anything, I've never seen anything, because there were a lot of things that were written. But I did not see anything that was really caste-based, and any oppression or any revolt or anything. Because if really something happened, for sure there will be a revolt. Because when people cannot take it anymore, there will be a revolt. So unless they are comfortable. Today, yes, price hikes, everything is there, but people are still okay with it. That's why there is no, any revolution, or maybe it's a bigger word. I don't know what is a smaller version of it is called.
Yeah.
So I did not see anything like that today. But if you look at 20 years ago, whenever there is a price hike or anything, people used to come onto the roads. Those are my school days, during my school days. So but today that's not the thing, right? Simply because they are okay, fine, we can manage, or why we have to take it on us. Maybe that should be another reason for it. So sir, go ahead.
Yeah, so you were saying that it's all these negative rape, all that attracts attention in the media and not the other thing. See, there are two aspects to it. It's one is that the media creates a certain consciousness, and that consciousness reacts, so people want that type of thing. And if we create this consciousness, drill it in slowly, then people will want it. And it's not that I don't believe that people are basically negative. Basically, people are positive. And those negative things have been inculcated in them by the media, by the politicians, by this. And I see, for example, Islamophobia even amongst our relatives is there. But now it's coming out. May have been latent, I don't know before, because one didn't realize it was there then. So, some of the base instincts are being brought out by the negative atmosphere. Secondly, if you live in an atmosphere of insecurity, by a cooperativeness you can bring out good qualities. But by isolation and individualism, the worst come out with insecurity. And that's what's happening. And this isolation of COVID is even bringing out even more worse qualities.
Right.
So, they know all this. They've done the Americans and all have done solid study of psychology. And they know how to brainwash and control people's minds.
Right.
And they're doing it to a great extent before also, particularly now with the lockdown, with COVID and all that. So, we have to recognize this factor. We have to understand how they're using it. Use their tools also, if necessary.
Yes.
And because their tools are scientific. They've done scientific analysis of psychology. It's not just a wish. They've used it for bad purposes.
Right.
They can use it for good purposes. So we need to study. That's what I plan to do in the future, study psychology and also the other point is that people don't come in waves or come in a huge this thing, unless the situation is totally different, a revolutionary situation, they're like in the 60s, 70s, all that time. Generally people, the first the advanced sections, the forward sections, the more liberal, rational sections will be attracted to your type of channels or thinking and all that, like to my book also.
Right.
And they will then can impact others. And then another wave, if we maintain our level,
right.
And it requires organization also for this. And no doubt you may not get funding and all that, that's a real problem, such thing. But I was telling these people that we should form a platform in which you keep out, target only the main enemies, which are the, say, Adanis, Ambanis and the big corporate houses and multinationals. But support the other business houses. And slowly, if we start gaining strength, they will also fund such channels, they will fund such this thing, because it will also start getting popularity in its own way. And why I was surprised that some of these videos, well-known leftist and progressive journalists like Punya Prasun Bajpai in Hindi and that Faye someone in English, they're getting huge viewerships for their videos. I don't know, how do they function? I don't know. They have their particular video channels. And he talks like Punya Prasun Bajpai, we knew him personally, he was in Nagpur with us. But I see his viewership 1.5 million, 1.9, this thing, all that type of stuff. Hindi, this is. So there is a market for that, obviously, this type of stuff. Right. And he's just a news channel person, he just speaks, that's all. But he does his homework, he does his analysis, and it's heavy stuff actually. He presents facts and figures. But I'm surprised at the level of, even in NDTV, Ravish Kumar, who's a very progressive anchor, he also has a huge viewership. So he also gets it. So it's not only this. Right. If there's an order, if you see the news channels, at least Hindi and English, except for Ravish Kumar, I don't see any other progressive one. All are trash. Both English and Hindi. His is, I think, Hindi only. I don't know if his is in English also. But he has a huge viewership and a following, Ravish Kumar. At one time they thought, after Gauri Shankar was killed, they thought he might be targeted, but he's still there. So it is there, this sentiment is there amongst people, but it will be an advanced section, even if it's 1 million, 2 million or whatever it is, amongst so many crores, it will be that starting point. Right. And then that will spread if we pursue and counter this trend also.
Right. And that's the question.
Yeah.
Right? See, that's where probably, either communists or these idealists are lacking.
Yeah,
right?
Very much lacking. These are not communists actually, these are liberals basically.
Right.
Yeah. You see, the question of communism, I was just talking, as I said, I was talking to the Angol comrade and asking about the communists in his city. Angol, Andhra has a big reputation of communism and things like that. So then nothing is left. He said there's us and the CPI, CPM is there, and there are these some 5-6 ML groups, Marxist-Leninist groups. They all have about only 10-12 people in each, and each are fighting with the other. Each one thinks that he's the Marx of today. So, I mean, this type of pettiness, I mean, who is it going to attract?
Correct.
Who is it going to attract? I mean, I try to deal with it in my book, saying that because I've also seen the same thing.